Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Hype Me Reviews. I'm Schoolwriter and today we're going to talk about Titan A.E. This one was also a request from readers, so thank you very much. Titan A.E. was one of those movies that I loved when I was a kid and couldn't explain exactly why. So I was actually glad when it was chosen to be my next Nostalgia Goggles Off review. Due to this movie's age and the fact that a lot of my impressions hinge on its plot, this time around, spoilers will be discussed openly, so if you don't want to be spoiled, avoid the writing section and skip to soundtrack. So, is this infamy earned? Is it a lost gem? Let's find out. So, what is it about? Titan A.E. is a sci-fi animation movie produced by the 20th Century Fox and directed by Don Bluth and Gary Goldman, with such a messy production and uncertain advertisement that resulted in a box office bomb so awful that it ended not only the career of its creators, it shut down its studio. Cursory research indicates that practically no one enjoyed working on this movie, and bizarrely, it draws many parallels with Treasure Planet, a sci-fi animation flick by Disney and another box office bomb. While I only saw Treasure Planet years ago and may end up doing another review sooner or later, I still remember enough of it to make some comparisons. In the far future of 3028, after reaching out for the stars, mankind developed a new technology, the Project Titan. Managed by Professor Sam Tucker, voiced by Ron Perlman, this project was so important and powerful that it somehow attracted the violent attention of the villainous Dredge, a species made of pure energy that attacked and destroyed Earth, scattering humanity through the stars. 15 years later, Cale Tucker, voiced by Matt Damon, the son of the professor, is living in a shabby junker station, resentful of his father's disappearance, when he is approached by the Captain Joseph Corso, voiced by Bill Pullman. Corso wants Cale to help him seek the Titan, which now is the last hope for mankind's survival. Not having much of a choice after the Dredge arrive at the station seeking to kill him, Cale joins Corso's crew, composed by his first mate Preed, voiced by Nathan Lane, the human pilot Akima Kunimoto, voiced by Drew Barrymore, the weird navigator Goon, voiced by John Leguizamo, the gunner Stitch, voiced by Gianni Garofalo, and together they enter a deadly race for the Titan and the future of mankind. Visuals. This is a Don Bluth movie through and through. I could go on a whole video discussing the interesting clashes in style between his style and Disney, but long story short, while Disney animation tends to focus on the eyes and eyebrows with characters having more fluid animations, Don Bluth tends to focus on the mouth and lip movements, to the point you can sometimes see the characters' gums while they are talking, and snappy movements alongside the darker color palette. Honestly, I always prefer his style over Disney's because they match the darker stories and his character designs are more striking and elaborated. Here, while Cale's is just a pet swap from Dimitri from Anastasia, the rest of the designs aren't shabby, even somewhat simplistic. Don Bluth always worked best with the weird, so his aliens are as plentiful as the budget could allow. The Dredge are particularly crafted to be as bizarre as possible, even if bipedal, contrasting with the more organic creatures with traits dating from fantasy. To further drive this point home, the Dredge are completely in 3D while everybody else is in 2D. Speaking of, this is another point of interest. The 2000s had a jump in 3D animation with everybody and their mother trying their best to explore uncharted territories. Every movie that blended 2D and 3D tried its own style. Here, more elements are isolated, and whenever they need to be forcefully blend, the 3D takes priority. For example, at the start, Cale's suit is completely 3D with only his head in 2D, with the glass effects obscuring his face. I'd say that this was a good move because it doesn't make the 2D pop out too much. Ships and vehicles are also completely in 3D, having some interesting designs even if you don't see many, just like the scenarios. While there aren't many locales to explore or resources to develop them, The designs are more often than not good enough to discern the different kinds of ships the main characters go through. Each one has a different style with a different palette, and on the only alien planet they visit has a striking visual. Even if the palettes are dark, more often than not you can see very clearly what's going on. What I don't understand is why the sudden thick filters? Thankfully they are not always around, but when they do, oh boy, it's, as far as I recall, and I can be wrong on this, the only Don't Bluff movie that has such thick filters. Not helping matters is the fact that not even the best designers in the world could have saved the roller coaster of quality. Fox sabotaged its own studio, having to outsource animation in its shows. Some scenes are so good with smooth animation and 3D that they remain gorgeous to this day, like the ice fields, while others feel like a PS1 game. Nearly every single place being a ship with 3D backgrounds didn't help things either, because while they are different, it's still ship after ship after ship, which gets tiresome to the eyes and only makes the visuals pop up. Acting. Animated action sequences are by default tricky and expensive, since you have to animate whole bodies in fast synchronized movements and so on. The directing knew that it didn't have much resources for such, which resulted in the bane of my existence: insanely quick cuts. At least there is still a sense of what's going on because set cuts are well organized, but they don't make things exciting. In fact, this movie is sadly plagued with weird sudden cuts to spare the budget. One moment the characters are just talking and then someone appears out of nowhere. On the other hand, there is still a lot to love. Whenever the directing has actual resources to breathe, things get really good. I had the impression that the directing in this movie pioneered several uses of 3D versus 2D, and seeing this movie again only confirmed it. I'm aware that the Beauty and the Beast did this before Titan in the ballroom scene, but here there's a really good use of the dynamic camera that follows the characters alongside the action, with the background spinning around them. Normally dynamic cameras in animation would be a hell to the budget, since you'd have to animate every single cell of the background alongside the characters, but here, since the 3D background is already rendered, the directing can get creative, so scenes that would normally be downright simple and straightforward turn downright thrilling just by twisting around the point of view. Another moment that I really love is the escape sequence from the junker station. Their ship is out of control, careening towards the closed exit. Both men just look at each other, realize that there is no eject button, and brace for impact. No quips, no jokes, no desperate pleas, just the action. I really miss this sort of simple but awesome directing. Writing. Before I go on, a reminder, this time I will be openly discussing spoilers. So if you intend to see this movie blind, skip to soundtrack. Still with me? Okay. If the visuals and the directing had really good intentions but not enough resources to pull off its ambitions, the writing had good ideas, but not even a shred of a chance. And it had a hell of a good base to do a really good thing. That because, unlike the vast majority of the studios of the time, and especially Disney, Don't Bluff was not only unafraid of dealing with death in these movies, but he also used death as a doorway to explore. Death is natural, it's inevitable, and it isn't the end. After all, which older fossils like me don't remember bawling their eyes out when Littlefoot's mother died on screen, only to be really happy when he found the Lost Valley at the end? There was the brutal reality that made the happy ending far sweeter. So, the premise of Earth being blown apart and mankind being scattered through the space, with the survival of the species hanging on a hesitant person, could have been quite interesting, with lots of offshoots to explore. Offshoots like talking about lost culture, the need to move on, how losing the world either scattered or united people in ways no one could, and so on. How did the aliens react to the dredge blowing up Earth? Why no one helped? Why are humans seen as scum? And since there was no hand of the mouse keeping things family friendly, like Treasure Planet, Things could go down in gruesome paths, and Titan A.E. does dip into it. It's definitely not a child-friendly movie. There are several brutal screams deaths, like broken necks, disintegrations, and more. There is also even some degrees of nudity. Except that to explore this kind of premise, you need really good writing and time to properly flesh it out, which the turbulent production with Fox didn't allow. It seems that this movie went through several retools and rewritings, and sadly it ended with the most milquetoast plot and characters to fit such an enormous premise. We have the edgy teenager protagonist with daddy issues joining the misfit but barely fleshed out crew and going through a convoluted treasure hunt that skips several steps until they find the treasure, where he hooks up with a girl because she's the only human female around. Let's start with the characters. Kel is the kind of protagonist that is a child of the 2000s. Separated from his father at age 4, he grew up to be an edgy, whiny protagonist that spent the first chunk of the movie needing to be convinced to save mankind. He doesn't show any empathy whatsoever and keeps most of the time complaining or trying to awkwardly hit on Akima, and to make things worse, he keeps flipping between missing his father, resenting his father for abandoning him, or just hating his father. And oh god, Scale does use every single available opportunity to remind the viewer of his dad or how he doesn't care about anything other than himself.
If I don't like the way things are going, I'll show you how much like my father I really am. I'll leave.
The only things that prevent him from being completely unlikable are that he is often the butt of the jokes, and Matt Damon actually plays him well enough to be endearing. Corso, on the other hand, is Kale's opposite. He is the experienced captain of a crew of aliens that also knew Kale's father, and he is aware that their mission is dangerous and selfless. Unlike Kale, he does care about the fate of humanity, but the majority of the time he is used to deliver exposition and one or two bonding moments. Outside of the main duo, Akima is there to be the counterweight to Kale's jadedness, talking to him about missing home and lots of sass. Goon is the childish quirky alien genius, Stitz is the extra tough gal, and Preed is the acerbic creep that as soon as he steps into the scene, you know that he will betray the group. That's it. I actually like the group and some of their interactions are amusing, but aside from the main characters, they are quite shallow. Most of their charm comes from their designs, voice actors, and how their simple traits mesh well. One thing that miffed me personally is that Stitz says that
Preed, I'll kill you. Okay? I will kill you. Oh! I am educated and well-read. I am not a mechanic.
and the movie never did anything with it. Could have been fun to see people expecting her to be just a meathead, only that she pulls something philosophical out of nowhere. The villains are sadly one-dimensional as well. The dress seems to be evoking both the Borg and the aliens from Independence Day, but their reasoning isn't explored beyond they feared what mankind could become. Their generic queen isn't named, and they just show up to make the protagonist hurry up and don't take too long in one place. And the more the movie goes on, the stupider they get, missing chances to kill the protagonist for seemingly no reason other than the plot said so. Using this cue to speak about the pacing, it's straightforward and messy. It knows its plot beats well and doesn't take overly long between them, but it's in such a hurry to go from point A to B that it just dumps information on the viewer. Kale barely gets into the ship, gets the introduction, and right away he's treated as if he was been with the group for 1 year or more, and does well like it. Akima barely tolerates him after his call remarks at the start, and it just takes one scene for them to be in much better romantic terms. Again, nothing about the scenario is fleshed out nor explained, they just reach point A, check something, and it's time to go to point B. This movie desperately needed more montages and at least 15 extra minutes to flesh out these characters better. At best, there is a scene where Preed and Goon act as comedy relief and another scene where Corso and Kale have some father-son bonding, but those end up feeling useless because, bizarrely, right after that, suddenly Kale and Corso switch places. Since the movie doesn't have a specific antagonist character and the Dredge are too generic and expensive to animate, Corso is revealed as a traitor that intended all along to just find and sell the Titan A.E to the Dredge. And suddenly he's the one thinking that mankind doesn't have a chance, while Kale starts defending it. Kale suddenly turns into a forgiving being full of empathy that wants to redeem his enemy, while Corso starts acting like a selfish prick, beating and intimidating his own crew just because. And Stiff doesn't turn him into pasta because the plot needs to go on. The switch came literally out of nowhere, since in no moment it was hinted that Corso had anything other than mankind's survival in mind. Oh yeah, Preed is revealed as a traitor too, but that was pretty much obvious. They have their clash, Kale and Akima escape, and they use a montage, the only montage of the movie, to build a ship to go after the Titan. Speaking of, the narrative tries to hide that the Titan is a ship that creates planets, but with how much everyone talks about wanting a home, it could have been far better to just reveal it from the get-go. They find the Titan, fight for it, and they save at the end. While I did the full dismantle of this plot, I have to say that overall, this isn't all bad. Just immensely lackluster and messy in comparison to what could have been if Fox allowed it to breathe. And even in the middle of this mess, there are things to like and really good movements within it. For example, the Gaol, aliens that resemble bats, and since they are mute, their interactions with Kale fall back to my beloved Show Don't Tell. And the part where the group has to deal with a particularly skilled guard is really freaking good. Dialogues are also good, they are snappy, jokes are brief and don't rely on slapstick more often than not. Unlike other movies of the time, they knew they were aimed at teenagers upwards and didn't try to compromise with the dreaded PG-13 again, like Treasure Planet. These moments pop out specifically because the rest of the movie is blasé, and they remain in the memory of those who have seen this movie. Soundtrack. This is an actually interesting case. Don Bluth wanted to not include any contemporary music because he knew that it would make the movie dated. He was right. All licensed music in this movie is definitely so 2000s that anyone who listens to it has a bout of synesthesia and immediately tastes the edginess, and Doritos for some reason. But at the same time, I found the music to be actually good. This will definitely be up to each person's tastes. If you don't like the 2000s rock, stay the hell away from this movie. But it's undeniable that it was actually well used. For example, The End Is Over by Powerman 5000 makes the escape scene even better, and this is one of the very few movie soundtracks that not only have a copy of, I listen to this very day from time to time. The music was also chosen to match the lyrics with what's happening on screen, for example, Kale bonding with Corso, people goofing around, and so on. The composed score is also good. Nothing superb, but good. Now, on the voice acting. It follows the roller coaster quality of this flick. Overall, it was good enough to give a needed extra charm to the characters, but nothing superb. Normally, an all-star cast tend to have one or two wooden performances due to lack of experience, but overall it was good. At worst, I felt that the quality outside of the main cast varies a lot, and Drew Barrymore played Akima a bit lackluster, almost phoned in. But then I was told that she first played Akima as eager to help and somewhat naive, only to be forced to redo nearly everything to be more jaded and less feminine. And this explained a lot. Unsurprisingly, there is a stark difference between the movie actors doing voices and the voice actors in their natural habitat. If Bill Pullman and Matt Damon were good enough to breathe life to their characters, but lacked the usual range, Garofalo and Lane steal the show whenever their characters talk. I heard Preed somewhere else though.
Quick, little devil.
Oh my god.
What do you want me to do? Dress and drag and do the hula?
Final thoughts. Yeah, considering that Titan A.E is a clear victim of vicious executive meddling, it's understandable and unsurprising why this movie bombed so hard. The quality of the animation is varied, plot and characters are lackluster, but at the same time there are nuggets of real quality amidst the blur. The designs, the music, the experimentation with the 3D and 2D make it just as understandable why it gets a cult following. It doesn't hit much, but whenever it hits well. It reminds me a lot of The Black Hole. In the end, I still do recommend Titan A.E. This is one of those movies that I can only recommend to people who know what they're getting into and can appreciate the animation, the 3D effects, the nice good ideas and the nice beats of this flick, warts and all. I enjoyed it then and I still enjoy it now. Well, this is all for today. Thank you very much and see you next time.